Forward, Spring 1641. The crowd was angry, outraged. Many were screaming, and as I looked at their faces, many were twisted in fury. I was 7 years old. Mr. Ames, whose demeanor was always calm and gentle at church, was yelling and spitting with a look of rage. Others in the crowd were behaving in a similar way. Numerous people held rotten vegetables or rocks. My father opened a bag and handed my brother and me an ear of corn already broken in half. A large portion was blackened so it would not be wasteful. "The sinner will appear soon," Father said with an air of assurance. The already raucous gathering now grew even more animated as a man was led toward the meeting house in the center of town. The crowd parted, and 2 male church members pushed the man forward. People began to throw whatever objects they possessed at the man. I watched in horrified silence as object after object connected, and the man grunted and grimaced in obvious pain. I noticed some children being held up by adults so they could have a clearer shot at the man. Mother and father stood several steps behind us, captivated by the disturbing scene that was unfolding. As the man approached, some other adults next to us in the crowd pushed my brother and me forward. Those nearby encouraged us to launch our projectiles at the defenseless man. I was astonished as my brother reached back and threw his pieces of corn as hard as he could. One piece hit the man on the side of his neck. My brother looked at me with anticipation and nodded his head in a show of support. Everything felt wrong to me. A tear came creeping out of my eye as I stood motionless with my hands down at my sides. Someone nearby screamed encouragement, "Throw it, Silas!" My brother briefly wagged his head from one side to the other in a disappointed manner as he slowly removed the objects from my hands and savagely launched them at the man. Fearful of having disappointed father, I turned to survey his face for a reaction. If he had witnessed my actions, there was no evidence of it. The man was led to the wooden stocks where his head and hands were placed in between 2 pieces of wood with holes cut out to keep him trapped. His head and hands were still exposed to the crowd. Some of those gathered saved their objects for this moment and now threw them at the man. Most thumped harmlessly off the wood of the contraption, but one caught the man on the side of his mouth. Blood and spit immediately burst from his mouth. A long string of drool hung from his lip for a long time. Small cuts were also visible on his face and hands. I found out later he would be there for a full day. This man was a thief. I left the gathering feeling like a failure, but I couldn't understand why.